And upon the table of shewbread they shall spread a cloth of blue, H8504, and put thereon the dishes, and the spoons, and the bowls, and covers to cover withal. And the continual bread shall be thereon. Num 4-9. And they shall take a cloth of blue, H8504, and cover the candlestick of the light, and his lamps, and his tongs, and his snuff dishes, and all the oil vessels thereof, wherewith they minister unto it. Num 4-11. And upon the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue, H8504, and cover it with a covering of badgers' skins, and shall put to the staves thereof. Num 4-12. And they shall take all the instruments of ministry, wherewith they minister in the sanctuary, and put them in a cloth of blue, H8504, and cover them with a covering of badgers' skins, and shall put them on a bar. Num 15:38. Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of the borders a riband of blue, H8504.
From the cabal itself is that they have to work within something they call the rules. And this is very, very important. So I really want to make sure that this gets into the film. The rules are a body of spiritual principles that they must follow in order to be allowed to exist. Now, what do I mean by allowed to exist? I mean that they are aware that there are benevolent forces that will prevent them from achieving their goals unless we give them permission. So why did they put this plan for 3 world wars on display in a book that's hanging there open behind glass in the British Museum Library of London? Because the rules state that they have to tell us what they're doing. Therefore, if we allow it to happen, we have consented to tyranny, we have consented to enslavement.
Remember I said, when I was showing that video that Tex Mars, the guy that was studying the Jewish people in the land of Palestine, he said that's principles that they live by. You know, that's what their God, the Ein Sofa, the flying, the serpent that's flying through the universe, that's coming around to eat its tail. That's the principles that he lives by, right? It's basically how he used to describe it. If you have a cup of coffee in your hand, and I come up and take it, and you don't take the cup back, implied consent. Therefore, the cup of coffee is mine and not yours. Even though, we all know I stole it. That's what they're trying to use for rationalization.
And this sure doesn't look like a fire to me. It looks like something almost exploded or something went off. Now, what's interesting is certain things are still standing while other things are not. Now, the governor did say this is climate change doing this. Interesting. What they don't talk about is in January how they had in Maui a smart city conference to turn Maui into an entire smart island, changing everything to electric, renewables, solar panels, and pushing everybody into electric vehicles. 15-minute smart cities. So now what's also interesting is next month in September, Hawaii is hosting the Digital Government Summit utilizing AI to govern the island.
What the?
Almost immediately. This is on Amazon. It's called Fire and Fury, the story of the 2023 Maui fire and its implication climate change by somebody called Dr. Miles Stone, who's the author. Let's find out what the actual story is, and I'll read that to you. It says, Fire and Fury, the story of the Maui fire. I may not be pronouncing that right, but please excuse that. And its implications for climate change is a gripping and eye-opening account of one of the most devastating wildfires in Hawaii's history, and how it reveals the urgent need to address the global climate crisis. The book chronicles the events of August the 8th to the 11th. I should point out we're filming this on the 15th, so 4 days later a book has been published already, which is quite incredible, really. Anyway, it goes on. When a massive fire swept across the island of Maui, fueled by drought, heat and hurricane winds. Hurricane winds. Note that, because those pictures would assume that there wasn't any wind, because I didn't understand why the trees aren't burned. The book describes the harrowing experiences of the people who lived through the fire, as well as the heroic efforts of the firefighters and the rescuers who battled the flames. Were there firefighters who battled the flames? The book also...
And the melted cars all along Front Street. I mean, it's as though these families they got trapped. When you think about the people still unaccounted for here.
It's just one of the heaviest thoughts to think about. I know that there's, I got 3 young kids, and I just imagine what was it. I'm just so thankful, I wasn't in here. I heard stories that people would just see families huddled together, and it said it looks like it's Pompeii. They're just calcified, frozen in time. And then when I heard that, because the schools weren't in that day, it was so windy that a lot of these were children at home. It's just too much. Sorry.
The world's first airborne directed energy weapon, the airborne laser, also known as the ABL. Just mounting the ABL requires one of the most sophisticated and elaborate modifications in history. The entire nose section is removed and retrofitted, and the world's largest titanium plate is installed to hold the enormous turret-mounted laser in place. The ABL system is designed to find, track, and destroy an enemy target in the air and on the ground. It can loiter at 40,000 feet for 5 hours, refuel in midair, and destroy a target 60 miles away in less than a second.
Really? Lasers? Really? To change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. Go ahead.
Well, this fascinates me in part because, too, I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after...
Vincent, there's this strange lightning bolts as you have been seeing.
Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right.
Yeah.
Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're bringing in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo-jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam. Firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning.
Mira la pinche láser, güey. La sombrilla azul, mira. La sombrilla azul.